How you sit for meditation is important. Padmasana or Lotus Pose is perhaps the most famous pose for sitting in meditation, and there's a good reason for that. It's the posture in which the greatest amount of surface area of the body is in contact with the ground, and it's also the most stable position for when the yogi goes into samadhi and their consciousness is no longer in the body. The body is still sort of locked into position. But there are a lot of people who can't get into Padmasana, so we have some options that work almost as well. Let's start with simple seated easy pose. So Melina, go ahead and sit the way you would most comfortably, just with the legs crossed. And we're going to use a blanket here to elevate the hips. This is optional. Melina likes to use one, and you can adjust that however you normally like it. If you're sitting on a blanket for meditation, if at all possible, you want it to be a woolen blanket. And that's because wool fibers insulate your sit bones, your muladhara, from energetic currents in the earth, which sort of retard the ability of spiritual energy to rise in the spine. So wool if possible, if not, just use what you have. So simple Sukhasana, simple, easy, cross-legged pose, that'll work just fine, especially if you're just starting out. Our next option would be Ardha Padmasana or half lotus. For half lotus, you can take whichever ankle is most comfortable for you. I use the right ankle personally, and just cross it into the crease of the opposite thigh. And then you want to make sure that your spine is straight, and that applies to all of these postures. So lift up through the crown of the head toward my hand. Yeah, just like that. And then the hands can rest a couple of ways, either in the lap, like so, or meditation mudra, or you can take Gyan mudra. We'll talk about this in another video, but circling the thumb and forefinger and resting the hands on the knees. And there are a couple other gestures as well. Our next option is Ardha Siddhasana. Half perfection pose, I think, is what this translates to. Now for Ardha Siddhasana, we want to take the heel of the left foot, and it has to be the left foot. This part isn't optional. And bring it in. In men, you want to place it right at the perineum, so it's touching the perineum. In women, it's going to be touching sort of the vaginal area as well. You don't want to sit directly on the heel, but you do want to have that contact there. There's a reason for that. And then the other leg simply folds in front of it, and then the knees fall open. For this one, I always use a blanket myself. I find that my knees open a little bit better, and I get a little better contact with the heel if I've got a little elevation underneath my sit bones. You can also use a cushion or some other kind of a support underneath the knees, especially if you're new to this posture and you're getting a lot of tension in the hips. So feel free to elevate these, but you do want to do that with the intention of removing the supports or making them lower gradually over time as you're able. Eventually these knees should come all the way down to the ground. If you're doing your rock the babies every day, that'll help a lot with helping this to open up. Ardha Siddhasana. Now if none of these seated meditation postures works for you, even with the supports, if you're just having a hard time getting into it or it's super uncomfortable, we can always use a chair. Especially if you have any physical contraindications. So you need a sturdy chair. Actually, let's put it this way. And it should be one that doesn't have any arms on the side. So you sit in the chair, have the feet parallel, just like that, flat on the ground. You want to have good contact with the ground. And then you want to bring the spine forward so you're not leaning against the back of the chair. You want to have space for that spine to vibrate, and you don't want the chair that you're sitting in to be draining any energy away from the spine as you're working. And then the hands just rest simply on the lap. You can also take any mudra that you're using in your meditation here.